Although I'm not certain of it, I couldn't swear to it, this may be the very first summer camp movie I ever sat through that didn't have beheadings, bare breasts, bloody brouhahas, and that even includes Ernest Goes to Camp. But for a PG film, 1979's Meatballs checks a whole lot of those horrific boxes. I'm going to tell you why right now. Sitting down here planning to rewind this one, I came to realize pretty quickly that I don't think I'd ever watched this movie before. I mean, I know I saw the second one because it had the chick from the James Spader Street Gang film, along with that really funky looking alien. But this one, though, I couldn't remember any scene that I happened upon when I sat through this movie. So it looks like we've stumbled upon a first time watch. Meatballs is about a summer camp for what we'll call underprivileged youth, or maybe middle-class kids, named Camp North Star. It's situated on the other side of a lake from their rivals, Camp Mohawk. Now, Camp Mohawk is where the privileged kids spend their summer, so there is a natural feud and hatred between the two sides. And amenities do sound great, especially when you're in that summer heat, but all these cats at Camp North Star, they really do know how to have a good time, and that is due in large part to the presence of Bill Murray as lead counselor Tripper. Now, the thing about Bill Murray, great as he is, and he's a Hall of Famer, he's legendary, he's wonderful, he really feels like the same character in every single one of his movies. Maybe that's just a me thing. I haven't seen his whole filmography, but from what I've seen, it's funny, but it's all very repetitive. And that's, again, still love him, just my opinion. But here he's joined by a whole host of counselors that are pretty colorful and have very distinctive things about each one of them. You know, Spaz is he's the Spaz. Hardware's got the nose. And Fink was the portly guy, I want to say, who actually, to me, looked a lot like Shane Gillis. And of course, you've got to have your host of pretty girls that all the boys are leering over, not to mention busloads of young, eager campers ready to find adventure and maybe even love of their own over the course of their summer break. And that's going to bring me to the very first issue that I had with this movie. And this is something that a lot of films maybe did way back in the day, because there were some folks maybe a little more naive about what was going on, but there are some awkward and borderline inappropriate moments between older people and these younger teenage kids. I mean, it's not quite as bad as that blatant cook, that creepy bastard from Sleepaway Camp, talking about all the young chicken running around as he's looking at these 13-year-old girls. It's not as bad as that, but it's still there. Perhaps it's because their brains are equal parts focused on getting laid and being in charge of and responsible for all of these youngsters. Now, perhaps the whole dynamic was a little more lax decades ago. Wasn't really a fan of it then. I'm not a fan of it here. And I can only tell you that I went to camp one time when I was 15 years old. It was down in North Carolina. And there was a camp counselor there that actually got arrested for being inappropriate with a 14-year-old girl. Total scumbag. So maybe that makes me a little hypersensitive to this shit, but I'm not a fan of it. As far as the campers themselves go, the most notable of them is a timid young man named Rudy. And when we meet him, it looks painfully obvious that home life isn't all that peachy. He just reminds me of me from when I was a kid, because I was that guy. He has way better hair than I ever did, but I was definitely that guy. And when he gets to summer camp, and he doesn't really have any friends, and he scores the wrong goal in a soccer game, and he is ridiculed mercilessly by his peers for it, I felt that deep down in my soul. And it turned out to be kind of the last straw for him, because when we next see him, he is at a bus depot getting ready to hop a bus, I'm assuming home. I guess teenagers did threaten to run away a lot back in that time frame. I don't know if they still do. Thank God my teenager's somewhat copacetic, but he was getting ready to hop on a bus and he was getting ready to head out of town. And that is when Tripper swings into action. Perhaps sensing he's got to pull this kid back from the brink Tripper decides he's going to take Rudy under his wing in an attempt to make him feel a little more at ease at summer camp, in hopes that the poor kid doesn't feel like his summer is completely shot. Teaches him blackjack, which I thought was a pretty fun scene. A little over the top, but I enjoyed it. Goes running with him every single morning, and he roots for him every step of the way. Puts him in position, in fact, towards the end of the film to be the big hero. And for me to have liked Tripper in this movie, this relationship needed to happen. And we'll talk more about that here in a moment. Now, leading this entire camp is a guy named Morty Melnick, who is mostly forgettable in the film, save for a monster, a epic Thor-like mustache perched above his upper lip. Now, Morty ends up being the foil for a lot of the camp pranks, and because he's such a heavy sleeper, the crew always hides his bed with him in it in the most random, precarious outdoor situations. I mean, he's up in a tree. At the end of the movie, he ends it in the middle of the lake, all while catching Z's in the sweet by and by. I mean, he's harmless, but he does have some of that predator in him too, because his dusty old ass looks a little too inappropriately at a couple younger ladies along the way himself. The bulk of this film is a very muted 80s comedy in that it's PG, so it kind of has to be. But there's still a lot of talk about sex, there's a lot of talk about erections, and the lurking on girls in the cabins, it all keeps this sort of whole movie borderline. Now, all of the relationship building and all the side quests that ultimately lead to an end of summer games competition where they face off with their enemies across the lake in Camp Mohawk. Before we get there though, let's just land on one more thing I wasn't too crazy about. Now, obviously the 80s were a couple of lifetimes ago, it really feels like, and things were done very differently, and guys viewed girls in a very different way. Consent wasn't really something a lot of guys had on their mind, and Tripper here in this film is fixated on Roxanne, and apparently they've had a relationship in the past, and he's gonna stop at nothing to rekindle that romance. Now, there's a scene here where he gets super handsy, hyper aggressive, and to be honest, that sort of thing wouldn't fly nowadays. Ultimately, the guy ends up getting the girl at the end of this summer fairy tale, but my guy would have been canceled with the quickness had he tried any of this shit in the here and now. I'm just telling you. So watching it, it was a little uncomfortable, and maybe I'm ultra sensitive to a lot of this stuff because I'm a girl dad, and the world for me is a scary place for women in general. So perhaps that's why I view it the way that I view it now. Anyways, though, I mean, all that aside, the games go like the games always do. The old trope of bad guys get out to a commanding lead when the main character gives this awesome rallying cry and the underdogs wind up battling back. I'm not gonna lie to you though, I thought it was cool how the once sad and dejected Rudy, he sort of got thrust into this deciding run by Tripper, only to have him end up the conquering hero once it was all said and done. It's a tried and true formula, but if something like that doesn't give you a grin, just the slightest grin, your soul is fucked up. So yeah, this movie's probably a one and done for me. I don't know that I'll ever watch it again. I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's still enjoyable. There was some good performances, and that big brother sort of thing, when you're growing up as a kid, having that sort of mentor is sort of what you always want. Like maybe it's your uncle, maybe it's your older cousin. Rudy having Tripper really sucked you into the movie, and obviously the hijinks are fun and all of that stuff that comes along with it. I'll say it ages gracefully just because this is something you could probably sit down with sort of your preteens and your teenagers. Now myself, my teenager has seen all the Friday the 13th movies, so he had his camp indoctrination early, but this is the best of a bad situation because this film hosted a whole heap of shitty sequels, and Meatballs 1 in 1979 is by far best in show. Now, this is Aging Gracefully. I'm Matthew Essex. We kind of hit that rewind a little fast. I've got a project that I'm working on that I'm really excited to talk to everybody about, but I'm not there yet with it. So if you like what we do here on Aging Gracefully, think about subscribing to the channel. Drop me a like. Send me a comment. Let me know, is Meatballs a part of your rotation? Is it something that you have fond memories of? Let's talk about movies and let's reminisce on some really, really good times in our lives. That being said, I'm going to get out of here. I will see you all At summer camp, perhaps, but definitely on the other side.